Hi, welcome to my review of 12 Years a Slave, directed by Steve McQueen, a film that is based on the nightmarish true story of Solomon Northup's abduction into slavery.
Well, boy, how you feel now?
My name is Solomon Northup. I'm a free man, and you have no right whatsoever to detain me.
You're no free man. You're nothing but a Georgia runaway.
Went down to the river Jordan.
And that servant that don't obey his Lord shall be beaten with many stripes. That's scripture.
Okay, so I'm going to start this review by talking about Steve McQueen. He's directed Hunger, a film that I have not seen. He's directed Shame, a film that I have seen, one of the best films of 2011. Michael Fassbender gives a great performance in the film. Probably should have gotten nominated for something in my opinion because it's really, really good. If you're someone who's unfamiliar with the movie Shame, it is about a man who has this horrible sex addiction. Obviously, making a film based around that subject matter does take a lot of true grit and courage, something that was much needed to make something like 12 Years a Slave, and Steve McQueen undoubtedly has that. But before I get into the rest of my review, I do want to say that you have to be kind of careful when dealing with a subject matter such as slavery or anything that happened in our history because, well, you kind of want to get your facts straight. You want to be as close to the actual thing as possible without Hollywoodizing it or anything like that. Unlike Django Unchained, which was a lot of fun, speaking for myself, I really couldn't take the film seriously. I just really couldn't because essentially the film was a cartoon. Now, don't misinterpret me. I'm not saying that Django Unchained was a bad movie or anything like that because, well, it was one of my favorite films of last year. In fact, I even own the thing. What I'm saying is that I really couldn't see it as anything really more than entertainment, and that's just my opinion. Luckily, 12 Years a Slave is not like that. 12 Years a Slave feels like a very sincere, very honest portrayal of something that actually happened. It is based on a true story, and I know a lot of films that are based on a true story are usually full of shit. Things are always kind of Hollywoodized to entertain the audience or for whatever reason. Although I've never read anything on Solomon Northup, given how it was presented in the film, I would presume it's something very similar to what I saw in 12 Years a Slave because, like I just said, it feels very sincere, very honest, and that's the way these kinds of movies should feel. But now, from scanning the IMDb boards, some people have said that there was a little bit of touching up, a little bit of adding in, stuff like that. But from what I understand, it was nothing too significant, so that's pretty good. And one thing I want to add is that 12 Years a Slave is not necessarily a movie about race. It's not a movie that's saying, this is what white people did to black people. It's really a film that's saying, this is what people are capable of doing to other people just because of pure ignorance. And on a side note, when I'm referring to the slave owners as people, I'm kind of using that as sort of a loose term because, well, some of those people are pretty shitty. Or better yet, just downright evil. And since I'm already kind of on the subject, I believe as a culture we toss words like racism and racist around way too carelessly. I mean, really, just this past summer it was tossed around without any sort of shame, and in fact, I would even describe it as a little revolting. Because let's be honest, it's words like those that pretty much only cause hate. There's really nothing good that comes out of using words like those. And furthermore, I'm sure everyone is aware of this, but it is always nice to be reminded that your race, your gender, your geography doesn't define who you are. Just because you are a certain gender, just because you might live in a certain area, or just because your skin is of a different color, doesn't mean you have to act in a certain way. There is no supposed to be anything. And I think some people, they kind of, I guess, forget that. Stereotypes really are a horrible thing, and yeah, I think we tend to forget that sometimes. We put so much emphasis on things that, quite frankly, really don't matter, like race. Who knows, maybe that kind of behavior will eventually fade out. I don't know. Hopefully it will. As a people, we're still kind of learning to get along, and yeah. That's all I can say about that. So now that I'm off my weird little soapbox, I'm going to get back to my review. Starting with the performances, all the performances in 12 Years a Slave are pretty incredible. There is really not a bad performance in this film. There are some that are better than others, definitely. But there are many standouts. One of them, of course, being Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'm not sure if I said that name right, but if you ever seen Children of Men, you might recognize him from that. That's where I recognize him from. But he gives an incredible performance in this film. He will undoubtedly get nominated, and in fact, I would even say he will undoubtedly win an Oscar for his performance. He gives the best lead performance I've seen all year, hands down. Just a really great performance. Now, there's another great performance in this film, and I know I'm going to butcher the hell of this name, but I'm going to, I guess, do my best attempt. Lupita Nyong'o. She is great as well. I would say her performance does stand a good chance at perhaps maybe scoring a nod from the Academy for Best Supporting Female. Her character doesn't necessarily have a lot of lines to say, but her character most definitely did leave a lasting impression on me. Then of course there's Benedict Cumberbatch doing a superb southern accent. There's really not too much I could say about him. He's only in the film for pretty much like the first quarter. But yeah, I really liked him in the film. But who plays quite possibly one of the most vile, evil, disgusting characters I've ever seen is Michael Fassbender. I mean, his character, there's really nothing redeeming about him. He makes Calvin Caney from Django Unchained look like Jesus. He's utterly insane. He really is a son of a bitch. And what's sad and disturbing is that his character is based on a real person, and unfortunately, there are people like that living today. But with that said, Michael Fassbender does give an outstanding performance, and yeah, hopefully he wins an Oscar for it because, like I said, it really is amazing. And in fact, I would even say it's his best performance that he's given, which is saying quite a lot. But moving on to some other things, in the film there are a lot of long takes without, of course, any cutaways. A lot of these scenes are pretty tough to watch. I'm not going to say what happens, but there was a lot of stuff I kind of felt like I was holding my breath through. They're pretty powerful. So with that said, this is one of the most heartbreaking and depressing films that I've ever seen. By the time the film had ended, there were a lot of tears in the cinema. I personally didn't cry, but as I was walking out of the cinema, it did kind of hit me, so I was kind of fighting back some emotions as I was walking to my car. And on a last note, I do want to say that Hans Zimmer did do the score for 12 Years a Slave. If you've seen the film or you've heard the soundtrack or whatever, essentially Hans Zimmer reused the track Time from the Inception score. There are some subtleties here and there in the track to keep it from being the same thing, but essentially it is the same track. Now, if you've seen my Captain Phillips review, you would know that that was one of my problems with the score for that film. However, the reason why it kind of irked me in that film and it didn't here was because of, well, that entire score was pretty much ripping off the Inception score. It wasn't just one track. And the reason I can kind of let it slide here, or at least it didn't bother me, was because, well, one, it's Hans Zimmer. He can kind of do whatever the hell he wants to do with that track because, well, it is his track. And two, most importantly, it actually aided in my experience because, well, I like the track and it fit the film quite well. Now, some people have complained about that, and I can totally see why, but personally, I really liked the track being in the film. And plus, I also liked it because it was very subtle. It was never overbearing or anything like that. It was just right, and it made a lot of these great scenes all the much better. Overall, 12 Years a Slave is an incredibly well-directed film with some master performances, and I know I should probably be giving this a 5 out of 5 given everything that I've said, but quite frankly, I really have no desire to revisit it, and that's primarily because of, well, the film is so difficult to watch. Hell, you watch it, it's just going to dampen your mood. Really, it just kind of makes you feel like crap after you see it. But it is definitely one of the best films of the year, one of my favorite films of the year, even though it is so damn bleak. I'm going to give it a nice, well-deserved 4.5 out of 5. I really liked it, but it's just, like I said, it's a hard film to watch. It's not going to be for everyone. So without further ado, I'm Colyn Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.